He made this 8-foot display. Can't really see it. Oh, okay. Derek Lewis. We're going to have Derek from Random Junk YouTube channel. He's going to be talking about how to repair broken pieces from your display.
Oh, there it is. Would you like to sit next to your
Well, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. Okay. What?
I'll sit here then.
Yeah, that's true.
I have the truth to say.
You're a good husband, Jim.
Alright, I am Derek. I am part of the RandomJChannel. One of two guys in the back of the camera. Together we are the RandomJChannel. We started off just doing random stuff and slowly migrated into repairing houses. So now I'm known for repairing fixed animated houses and other objects that are animated as well. Hold on a second. That boy got it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hopefully it picks everything up. Alright, so I'm going to go over some basic stuff on how to repair a house, the tools you may need, the parts that commonly break. So we're going to start off basically with just some basic tools. If you want to fix your own houses, you don't have to spend a lot of money on tools. You don't have to buy the big fancy stuff like I have. You can buy basic hand tools. So we'll start off with, to separate a house, we're using resin together or hot glue together or super glue together. It's kind of hard for dismantle. So some people use a hot air gun, which is this. You can get these for about $20 at Harbor Freight. This is great for separating the glues and resins. Be careful not to burn yourself or melt the house, because you can't do that. You can also use a hair dryer, but I found a hair dryer sometimes do not get hot enough to melt the resin when they resin houses together, because a lot of the newer houses are held with resins and not glues. They have a much higher melting point. But for less than $100, you get enough tools to take apart your house and do it yourself. So. But you can get it shaped like this, or you can get it in the shape of an actual gun. These are kind of nice because they have tips you can put on it with different shapes and sizes. So you can get a wider air, narrow air. Tips kind of look like this. So you can pinpoint your location of it. So you're less likely to melt your whole house. So that's bad. Also, when you have to open your house, once you get it nice and hot with the heat gun, you need something to pry it. You can use a blade screwdriver and pry open the house. Or you can get a spudger kit. Get this on Amazon for about $15. This has both plastic and metal spudgers, and they're handy for separating different components on your house. So if you want to remove most of the...
Can you say that word again or spell it?
Spudger?
Yes.
S-P-U-D-G-E-R.
Oh. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So, this side's the metal side, which allows you to pry the harder stuff, and this side's the plastic side, which is usually more for like a cell phone, but you can use it on your house as long as you're just prying a few pieces of plastic apart. I use this side majority on my web YouTube channel because of the resin, porcelain resin piece of better. And also, if you watch my channel, I use this a lot. This is also a sludger. It's a spring piece of metal, which is kind of nice. It allows you to put it inside and then add tension, so that you can slowly lift whatever you're trying to pry off. That way you're not dealing with burning your fingers after you superheat it with a tire. Once you're inside, unless it has screws, you can just remove the components with the hot air gun in most cases. Now, a lot of the houses today are putting together screws on the inside. A cheap set of screwdrivers comes in really handy. These are electronic screwdrivers. I picked these up over at Harbor Freight. They're about $7. You got your blade and your Phillips. Goes from number 1 to number 2 on Phillips. The long shafts are nice because some of the screws are really recessed, or the house is so tall that you have to get all the way to the side to reach where the motor is. You can get cheaper packs, like these come from Amazon. The little screwdriver kit, it's like $4, but you can see how short they are in comparison. So these are nice if you're doing some small stuff. It also comes with plastic spudger. So they advertise this little kit for cell phones. So if you want to take your old cell phone apart, change the battery, etc. But it works for many houses as well. It allows you to get to the fine screws because every house comes with different size screws now. Also, something that's really handy is you can use a pick and all. These are 2 types of picks. Basically what they allow you to do is you can poke when you're looking for a weak spot in the house. Separate the resin. I'll use a screwdriver or a pick. I'll poke around trying to find the soft parts, so I'm not worried about getting the resin, porcelain, ceramic, plastic pieces. You want to find where the adhesion points are. Picks come in handy. You don't need to use them. You can use a small blade screwdriver and do the same thing. But picks also come in handy for if you're working on the wiring inside. You can fish it out. You got a these actually came from, they're from Jegs, which is a hot rock hard parts place. But you can get them over at Harbor Freight or East Harbor. I go through lots of them. Usually break the tips off when I'm doing something stupid. So I don't buy the expensive ones. Once you're inside, if you have a bad motor or bad light, you need to cut something out. These are just cheap wire strips. You really get about 10 of these for $20 on eBay. They're really cheap. But also, a lot of people use them for making doors. I buy them on eBay because it comes in multi-packs, and you really get a break on the jobs. When it comes to stripping your wire stripping, there's 2 different styles that I use on the channel. I use this one, which is just mainly for stripping. It allows you to cut the wire and strip the wire back. This one does too. This one also has a little jagged section right here for crimping. So if I have to crimp or fitting, I use these. Or if I'm just stripping the wire back, I use these. You can get both of these at the Harbor Freight or East Harbor. They're literally just $9 each. A lot of these tools are really cheap if you're into fixing your own house. Once you're inside, you find the broken part. If it's a motor or a light bulb, you need to solder. There's multiple ways to solder. There's multiple types of soldering. You get a soldered pen. This is usually the most common thing. This one's adjustable. Not all of them are just or soldering a rod with a soldered gun. If you're old enough, you probably remember these. They've been around since like the 60s. They're really good. And they get really hot. I love it. It's really good for doing big solder jobs. So you're taking apart one of the big max houses I use is the mortuary. It has a distribution board. It has really large solder pads. Solder pads, this can't get the solder pads hot enough to make the solder station. This one will, which is a lot more heat and has a much larger surface area. So depending on what you're doing, either one will work. This one, getting it inside the house is harder. This one is working easier, it's nice and thin. Most of the time, this will suffice for everything. Plus the tip is removable. Both sides. And you can get the flat tip for doing bigger soft goods. But you can still find these for $30 for the set. I find these, I burn them on. See how this color is. You get about $10. You find them hard free. Amazon, eBay, garage sales. Goodwill. Basic hand. The size of screwdrivers. Wire cutters. You don't need big ones, but they're part of the kit. And your best friend in anything you repair should make differential multipliers. When you're inside the house, you usually have a very small hole in the bottom of the side that you get into. Well, use your hands to things. These are when these come in handy and they're really nice to have. These are a 45 offset, and these are straight. These are long nose, standard with a wire cutter inside. The wire cutters are not that good. These are articulated long nose. There's a few houses out there that these are definitely required for tips, especially if you buy them. What they do is they allow you to open all the way without spreading the handles. Here, you can see the difference. So when you're in a finite area, it's nice to have options. You don't always need this. These things are about $25 by themselves. This whole kit came from Menards. Oh, we don't have one out here. But this whole kit came from Menards. It was $16. You can get a similar kit on Amazon, eBay. Even these are where you get multiple little tools for doing the work. Some more. If your eyesight hair. Magnifying glasses or magnification devices are great. This is a lit magnifier, I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. This helping can has a magnifier on it. You can't even solder in small parts. But usually I find the easiest way is just take that set magnifier. So you just put it on, you're doing something, you put it down, plus this has a secondary window on the inside. Maybe a little closer. This one I got at the Goodwill. You don't have to go anywhere expensive. You can literally just buy this stuff you need. They do come in handy, and I recommend it to anybody because the parts at the side here, see, they're really small. And I know my eyesight isn't the greatest with the glasses. So these come in handy. So once you've gone in and found your broken part, it's like fix it. Now we need to put it back together. Once you get everything set, hot glue is your best friend. There's a couple types of hot glue guns. 41. I'll trade and get a battery operated. This is a cheap glue gun from Amazon for $300. And really, really thin, but I do have the whole batteries. This is buying what's or distance or your. And I get a question a lot of what kind of glue sticks I like to run around with pieces I use. Truthfully, if it wasn't for Carl, I would have never found this company, Schumacher. They're probably the best ones I've ever come across. I tried Gorilla, Ace Hardware, Arrow. Company like this. Their glue sticks are great. They're Schumacher, dries clearer, dries harder. So you get a much stronger bond. And you get them in your short sticks. Or
Louder.
louder? Okay. Okay, sorry. All right, so Sure Bonder is the glue I use. And if the short sticks are too short for you, which they usually are, you can go to Sure Bonder or Amazon. You can get whoa. So you can, you can cut it neat, or you can just keep repeating it, and then even comes with a handy little feeder hole in the top of the box. But I thought about mounting this on a spool, hanging from the ceiling, because I go through on an average repair, usually about 1 to 2 of these sticks at a time. This is a much better deal. This, I think, was $70 on Amazon. It's equivalent of about 10 the bags full of short sticks. Yeah, it's 77 feet per case of water. It's a lot of wood. And of course, custom length is what it says on the box.
Is that the standard glue stick, bigger one, or is that a smaller one?
No, this is the bigger one. It's not the little hobby glue gun, it's the larger. The hobby glue guns are nice, but when you're trying to glue your house back together, you have too much surface area by the time you get all the way around it. This stuff, though, when it does get hard, you almost can't pull it back apart. It requires a lot of extra. So I started using this at these classes. I tried it out, and now it's testing? Nope. No. All right. Yeah. I'll just filter.
Yeah.
The battery lasts in this about 30 minutes. Now this is a 2 amp hour battery. It went up from the 1 amp hour. You can put 4, 5, or 6 amp hour on here. Be sure if you do do this that you need to get one that has an indicator on the back, because this does not have a cutoff. This will literally drain the battery to a safe level where the charger will not charge it. That's the only downside with the cheap ones from Amazon. You can go buy the Ryobi one, which does have the cutoff, but I don't want to spend $100 for a glue gun. 13 was in my price tag. So I said I don't like to buy the expensive tools knowing that the cheap tools work just as good, as long as you keep an eye on the power consumption. If you want to start getting into more finite tools, especially when you need to measure components diameters, you're going to need a set of calipers. These are analog calipers, so it's got a dial with a needle to tell you the diameter. Now, if you're not really, it's also an SAE. 99% of everything on these houses is in metric. So I recommend digital caliper, because it gives you fractions of an inch, inches, and millimeters more metric. This one's from Harbor Freight, like $10. Because you don't have to spend a lot of money on these tools. It is just as accurate as my expensive one that I use on the channel. I used to use this one all the time. The reason I quit using it is the battery cover keeps popping off and it goes. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I quit using it. I went to an expensive one that has a different style battery cover. One thing you will probably, you don't have to get an expensive one, is a multimeter. Some people get just a voltmeter, which is fine. I use a multimeter so I can check the capacitance, resistance, and voltage coming from the unit. This one is like $5. Really cheap, so you don't have to spend a lot of money. This one was about 10. This one has the amp clamp if you want to test amperage. These houses don't draw enough amperage if it matters. And this one does pretty much everything. It tests everything I need and more. It's a graphing one, so it can do oscilloscope, it can do voltage, amperage, capacitance, resistance, all sorts of stuff that you generally don't need to know on your house if you're going to repair it. But there are options out there. Like I said, if you're doing it just for fun, the cheap ones are fine. Don't invest in something expensive unless you have another piece to it. If you're going to tinker with electronics, it's definitely worth it. More specialty tools. Not a doctor, but they on TV. Sorry. Is this better? Yeah. All right. So, sometimes on the houses they're too tall and you need to get in there like a long wheel nose. What I like about these is if I'm soldering, they lock. And of course you can get these anywhere. Any medical supply place, Amazon. Harbor Freight. These work really good for the small, thin wires. The whole thing doesn't open, so as you get far in, grab what you need, and open and close it. So, what I use on my channel that you can't see all the time when I do the houses is I use a big machine here which does heat, solder, heat from the air gun, solder, as well as it has an output for voltage and USB. So when I'm repairing them on the channel and you just see two leads coming up from the side, that is what I'm using. It's a solder station or a rework station. They're rather expensive, unless your hobby is to play with electronics. I wouldn't recommend it. They're usually around $150 to $180. Amazon and eBay are the best places to find them. If you get them locally, they're going to cost you a lot more. The other thing that I use, especially when I'm working on Department 56 and Mr. Christmas, because they like to make everything AC, is a variac. And if you've seen my channel, you've seen this thing on there. It's about 15 pounds of copper wire. It has an output of 0 to 135 volts AC. So that way you can test the AC motors. Like the motor up in the upper left-hand corner is a 12-volt AC motor. This only puts out DC. You can't test an AC component on the DC generator. So now, if you open it up, you replace your component, and you're concerned about the wires touching. Now, if it's Max, they do things cheaper. They don't use any heat shrink or insulation on their wires. They literally just put a dab of glue over the wires, and that's insulated. You can use heat shrink, which is what I normally use. Liquid electrical tape, which I've also used, depends on what I'm doing. Or real electrical tape. I found that Max is a little cheaper on their build on the inside than most of the other products. So usually after I repair them, I upgrade them to something that's a little bit stronger, a little bit better, and less likely to fail as fast. If you've never soldered, there's plenty of videos out there online that will teach you how to solder. But I will tell you one thing about soldering is you need to clean your solder pads and you need to clean your wires. You need a flux pen or flux paste when you're soldering. Again, this stuff is really cheap. This was $2. And I think this was like $1.99 as well. And then of course, if you're removing old solder or you want to fix your solder joint, you get a solder sucker. They're a few dollars on Amazon. So you get the solder joint hot, you stick this on top of it, click the button, you sucks the solder inside. Then when you do this again, the dried solder falls out in half, which is really good for cleaning up ball solder joints. Max again is really good at doing that. Instead of making nice clean solder joints, they do gorilla joints where there's a big ball of solder with no protection over the hot glue. And unfortunately, it causes problems when the hot glue breaks down, components touch the wires, they arc, the house lights. We'll go on to some of the components. So on the board, so I stand close to the microphone. On the upper left-hand corner are the standard hobby mode inside of Max, Department 56, Mr. Christmas, and Bluebill. The one in the upper left is a synchronous motor. Department 56 uses tons of them. Max uses a handful. Mr. Christmas uses a handful, which we're going to find those more often in Department 56. The problem is they seem to use the ones that don't make them. It's really hard to find. But you can measure them, read the numbers on the side, and cross-reference them on Google. And of course, Amazon usually has them. Sometimes eBay. Sometimes you have to get them directly from China, and that takes a month or two. You gotta be patient. The other two motors that are next to it, two smaller ones, the pancake motor is used on about 95% of all Max, and one below it is used on all three. Mr. Christmas, Max, and Department 56. And I'll tell you, the most common failure of the two motors on the right is too much lubrication. They would fill with oil, the grease breaks down because it gets hot, they short out. When you short out, your entire house goes black. Or your carnival ride or your accessory. Basically, electricity wants the fastest path back to its source. A shorted motor is way faster than going through the entire circuit board to get back to its home. So if you have a house that you plug in, all of a sudden it just stops. You unplug it, plug that adapter into another house and it works fine. The most likely cause is you lost your motor and shorted out. Don't keep it plugged in. Your AC adapter will usually overheat. And in some cases it gets hard. It's rare, but it has some damage. The synchronous motor, when they fail, these just get really loud. They get a loud clacking sound on the inside with a clack, 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 clack. That's because inside that metal casing is 5 gears on average, and one of them is broken. If you try and rebuild them, I have a video showing you how to rebuild them. It's usually just easier to replace it. Directly below it is a circuit board. It's just a basic circuit board, so if you wanted to see what they look like, they're solid on the back. See why you need magnifiers. Those things are nice and small. So, it's just a basic circuit board. That's a circuit board that got plugged into the wrong power prior to the board. The board only has 50% function. Just there to show you the components that are on there and why you need something like this to work on. There's also an example here of the standard hobby gears and pulleys that are used in almost every animated piece out there. Whether it's a house, a cable accent, or an open foot car, doesn't matter. Hobby gears are pretty standard when they're in plastics. Or if you get them in metal, I recommend not replacing them with a metal gear. And if your house is in plastic, that metal gear will wear down the nylon plastic fast and you'll heat up your gears. There's smaller components that are usually replaceable. You got resistors, LEDs, capacitors, and transistors. And I'll tell you, if you have a house that has a staticky speaker, the speaker itself isn't blowing, there's a good chance that this capacitor has failed. That one is normally used on all houses that have combination with sound. It is a smoothing capacitor. Electric motors are really noisy. They'll cause noise in the circuitry that we're speaking, and you get the static of the pump. That capacitor, when it dries out, will no longer do its job and move the noise, so you get the static. Older cars, remember, you've got to put this box in your stereo so your stereo won't pick up the noise from the engine. Same principle. The transistors, the two that are up there, are the basic ones used on almost every animated house since the dawn of animated houses. It's just two different styles. The styles vary on where the input goes. And the nice thing about transistors is that all the see them go, the magnifier, but the front or the flat side has a label. Most transistors are used on flashing lights, and chasing. They're also used on the audio circuit. The resistors, they're everywhere. They come in different resistances. The multimeter helps. They're also color coded, so you can read the colors. Like in the video, I'll tell you what the resistance is. The multimeter also does. The problem is that the resistor catches fire. So if the resistor burns and is blown open, you can't read the color anymore, can't test the resistance. That's when you have to troubleshoot as best you can. You can look at resistors around it and get an idea of the range it's going to be in. You know that the power going into the house is between usually 2.5 to 12 volts. Some houses are 120 volts. But you can get an idea, and then you can calculate out of what that resistor would be. If you're going to test with different resistors, start with a higher resistance and work your way back. Unless you can find somebody that has one that they can open and tell you what the color code is. Trust me, that helps a lot. The two rotary switches, you have an EMAX products, you're very familiar with those. On the little cord that sticks out, you have the little orange wheel. And the one below it that's bigger is on the back of the porcelain house, which is a much older version. Those rotary switches are notorious for breaking because they use lead-free solder. The solder joints break and the wires are inside the switch. Also, there's a little screw that holds the wheel on the front. The screw is really good at just backing down when you switch it. Those rotary switches are easily replaced. You can get them on Amazon. They're $8 for a pack of one. So you buy them, swap it out, get your rotary switches back. Very simple, very fast. Over to the right of it, I have, which is kind of hard to see from where y'all are, there's fiber optics. All house companies have fiber optics. Farmer 56, Lee Max, Newville, Mr. Christmas. And that's where you have those little pin lights that rotate colors, and the tree will have little spot lights on it, little dots. Those are fiber optics. Fiber optics you get in small bundles to 60-foot rolls on Amazon. eBay, or if you go to Goodwill, which I do a lot, especially around Christmas, you can get the cheap Chinese knockoff houses. They're usually plastic and crappy. They're really good at using fiber optics, so you can just take the fiber optics out of that. You can get those houses for like $2 at the Goodwill. That's where those came from. The red and black coil wire directly below it, that's standard LED wire or wire they use in houses. It's a slightly larger gauge than most houses use, because when I do repairs, I don't like using the thin stuff. It breaks too easily. And it's also really hard to solder. Your soldering iron gets so hot, it actually melts the wire. And defeats the point of fixing it. Now, if you have a piece that has what they call fairy lights, there's a handful of pieces out there that do this. There's itty bitty thin strings of lights that have that fine colored wire. That's the bigger coil below. That is a bare copper wire that's covered in a varnish. And it's usually rare. And you'll see those mostly on houses that have signs that may have rotating and chasing lights, or signs with itty bitty little LEDs, but not fiber optics. Farmer 56 and Lee Max use that a lot as well. Mr. Christmas and Bluebell not so much. You can get that on Amazon, it's a couple of dollars. You can also get it at some of the electronic stores, since we're chatting 7 and come back in some areas, so you can find it there too. Probably won't need it. You can replace it with regular wire, but it's just much thinner, so it can fit in tighter spots. And then on the bottom right, if you have any of the Department 56 ski slopes, especially the ski slopes, they have a big belt underneath with magnets attached to it to make your figures go around in the circle of your figure eight. So it has guides. Those guides wear out. Those are just generic guides. You can get them. I got those out of a cheap Chinese one that I got from the Goodwill. But you can also find them at Ace Hardware. I was surprised they actually have them. But they're just generic guides. They do come in heights, from narrow to tall. You just have to get a measurement, search them online. Most likely you're going to find one of those. They seem to have everything. And then the bottom left is a belt kit. The biggest issue that I come across in houses is they no longer function. It's either a belt or a gear bar. The most common two things. You can get generic belt kits from Amazon. Those are great. I get those belts from Skull Crane Electronics. They are animatronic repair company. Their belts are made from a different type of rubber, which is more elasticy, it's stickier, so it's less likely to slip, and it has a longer lifespan. So that's what I use there. Skull Crane Electronics. SKULLKRA. A business card in the back that has our website and stuff. It is linked on there. So you can just click on the link and it takes you right to their page where they have different kits. This is their newest kit that just came out with. This has the standard gears, right? And that was sticker. And it has the standard drive belts for the small motors right in the corner. This is $30. It comes with 8, 9, 10. That did say 14, the sticker fell off. And that one's at 18, the sticker fell off. Tooth gears, which are the standard transfer gears on most all animatronic houses. And then the main drive belts, these are the small ones, and that's the larger kit. So I found that Skull Crane uses better belts. The gears are about the same as the ones you get on Amazon, but I now buy all my belts from them.
I haven't had any issues, whereas from Amazon, I bought some that were dry rotted and they showed them again. No idea how long they've been sitting in the warehouse. Lemax predominantly has the foam mats on the bottom. A lot of people ask how to replace those. You can go to Michael's and get the adhesive back foam, stick it on, cut out the shape, and good to go. Or you can get the ones that don't have the adhesive. This is what I use for my adhesive, which is the Gorilla Heavy Duty Spray. Just the standard spray adhesive. I find the Gorilla Glue is a little easier to use because it has a longer setup time. So if you make a mistake, you peel it back off and realign it. Whereas the one that I used to use, as soon as you stuck it, was out. So I recommend this one. Lubrication. I mentioned that lubrication is a common issue, especially with motors. If you're going to lubricate the gears, the gearboxes, etc., white lithium grease or silicone grease works the best. Now, if you have two pieces of plastic that are rubbing each other, such as in the Haunted Funhouse from the Dept 56, it has a spinning drum that has a character inside of it. It uses a plastic brace to keep that drum centered. When it comes to plastic on plastic rubbing, I use the dry film non-stick sprays like this one can be on. I found that it doesn't cause excessive grease buildup and doesn't attract dirt. The problem with most lubrications, because they're a sticky, viscous mess, is they attract dust, dirt, and grime. Biggest problem I see, especially with houses that have animals, is you get hair stuck into the grease, it gets caught in the gears, it slows everything down, and the grease gets hard and it pulls up enough dust, the grease becomes like concrete and everything just stops functioning. And then you gotta tear it all apart. So for the stuff that isn't gear related, the dry films work the best.
What'd you say it was? A
This?
dry what?
It's called dry film lubricant. Once you spray it, after a few seconds, it's dry to the touch, but it's still lubricated. Amazon. Well, you can get it at Walmart, but Amazon delivers to my door for like $2 less. So, I guess that's cheap. We didn't start this channel by having lots of money. So, but this is also good if you try and do any casting. So if you're doing a gear casting or using clay, they recommend you use a dry film, and most companies that do that recommend you use the DuPont brand. There must be something about it that the dry film allows you to release your product from the agent, whatever you're using, the resin, the casting tool. So I've used it on plastic pieces and I've used it on castings. I don't really have a problem with it. I will tell you it has a very distinctive smell, so if you're using it inside, just be aware that it has a very strong odor. Probably don't want to use it inside unless you absolutely have to. Or you might be used to this. I haven't tried other door handles. I usually, for my door handles, I use graphite. Yeah. I know I have used graphite lubricants on the mini houses for the outdoor display. So there's a guy that lives down the road from me. He has about 2,000 Dept 56 houses that he puts outside of it. It's insane. And, you know, but the weather takes its toll on the moving parts. So I found after working on it for the last couple of years, I use, if you're going to have it displayed where there's a lot of moisture, the graphite lubes work better than the white silicone and the white lithium grease. It depends on where you're displaying your products. I'm sure all of us here do it in our house. Just in case you don't, you might want to change it up. Also, I recommend sealing the bottom of your house, because usually most houses, the access is on the bottom. Put a bead of silicone tube around the edges, so no water can ingress from the bottom. Also, it's good to cover your screws with down with that silicone. Again, this is if it's outside or in a very humid or moist environment, so the screw heads won't rust. It's one of the hardest things I have when I repair his houses. I can't get the screws out. Usually I have to drill them out and then replace them with new screws. Some of those. Yeah, Dept 56 has actually been to his house and couldn't believe what he has sitting outside, because he has houses that he puts outside every 40 years. And they're worth a lot of money, and they sit out in the weather for 6 weeks. He does. And as he tells people, if somebody steals one, they want it more immediately. So, yeah, there's actually a video on our YouTube channel where we walked around his yard with the camera so everybody can see it. Because nobody believes that somebody would take everything you see in there and put it outside in Mother Nature.
Where does he live? I'm curious. I want to go see it.
It's Mesa. Basically, it's the half road Paris and Southern.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's one block.
I know where that's at.
It's between Gilbert and Stately in Mesa, off of Southern. It's the half light, which is right in Mesa High. And it's the first block in. You can't miss the house. Because as soon as you go south on Harris, you'll see it right there. And you see a gazillion lights and all these little miniature houses spanning this entire property line. It's yeah, it's pretty interesting. But they break. Yeah. He found me and I fixed it for him. It also fixes Jenny's, and she, a lot of you know, around Halloween and Christmas, she does 4 foot, 5 foot, 6 foot tall figures. They're Jenny products. Actually, Scope Electronics, that's where they started. They were a Jenny repair company. Now they've moved into all the independent stuff, which includes the miniature houses. But they don't fix that. They just sell them parts. So you can get the kits, whether the big kits or the small kits. So, yeah, there's a lot of companies out there that are slowly changing to fit the people who do villaging. Apparently there's a really small niche market and it's gotten a lot larger. Because truthfully, when we started the channel, we thought, you know what, I got a broken house from a pawn shop for $7 or something. Vince actually got it. It took me 30 minutes to pull it apart, fix it, put it back together, and we talked about it. I said, you know, maybe we should film it. Maybe people out there need help with theirs. And voila, 5 years later, I get 30 or 40 houses sent to me a month that I sit there, fix, and then send back. So, just gotta be careful. I've had some houses show up where they're powder, where they didn't pack it very well, and it came in more pieces than you never quite together. Or, they send it back to them, and somehow it's run over by a semi. So, I don't know how they do it, but I always tell people, if you're gonna ship anything, especially these surrounding houses, do your best. Don't just use front covers or get some bubble wrap. Use good tape to the box next to it. Any questions? I know it's kind of boring right after lunch. I'll have to get the old junk to show you that. Yeah, it's more. It's a technical thing. That's why I do the videos. I do it so the average person knows how to do it. And if you can't, you can email me. You can message me through Facebook Messenger. Because Messenger is nice for the fact that you can actually send video. Emails degrade the video quality so much you can't make out what it is. The pictures are better. And I'll help people fix their products through the internet.
You might get a lot in the mail section. Just talking about it.
Oh yeah, I get them all the time.
Get your card.
Not
Yep, I actually have them sitting on the concrete pillar at the back pole. So they're sitting there.
that would be something.
Did you ever get a house?
I know. I
Yes.
do the filming and editing.
Yes, one of the houses that I haven't been able to fix, we're still trying, is the swinging doilies by Department 56. That is probably
Okay, you know what? Unscrewing that thing, how do you do it?
well, the biggest part is the resin, the top cap to the bottom, and you have to get it super hot to separate it, and it usually damages the board inside. No, the top cap with all the lights. The brass part of the screws, you can take off your swinging doilies and put them back in the box. It gets stuck.
Yeah.
I'll tell people if they have it, put down the Vaseline on the threads before you screw it back on, because they won't get seized.
It's getting it off.
Well, if you put the thread, Vaseline, and you screw it on, it'll unscrew easy because it stops any dust from binding up the fine brass threads. Yeah, I know. I have one too. We couldn't get off either, and we ended up actually breaking the cap trying. I know, it's horrible. Yeah, because on Department 56, the ones that we see that fail the most is the swinging doilies. I haven't seen that one fail a lot. Same thing? Won't come apart? Wow. Because I see a lot of the same pieces over and over and over again. On Department 56, it's two pieces predominantly that I see, which is the swinging doilies, the gearbox and motor dies inside, and it's almost impossible to take apart, and the scaredy cat Ferris wheel. Every one I've had has been out of alignment. The pulley on the bottom doesn't line up with the pulley on the top, and it causes the bottom to distort, and it doesn't break the belt. So these are really strong belt, but it burns out the motor. And they use this really heavy resin that you have to superheat to get apart, and then you can re-level it using resin or glue. You can re-level the motor so that way the pulley is in a straight line, and then you're good to go. The other issue, sorry, it's not. Department 56 has a tendency of using multiple voltages with the same size plug. And right now, I have about 7 of the lunatics laboratories that are 3 volt. That people put the 12 volt into it, and then they kind of catch fire. So I'm currently in the process of rebuilding the circuit boards so that way they can actually work. VMAX, the biggest problem they have is all their spinning carnival rides, the ghost round, roundup, the Ferris wheels, the carousels, because they use that itty bitty little motor on the top to run this big moving mass cylinder. And if anybody knows, the larger something is that spins, the more stress it puts backwards onto the gearbox. It either fries the motor or it snaps the plastic gears inside. Those are their biggest issues. Mr. Christmas is notorious for just breaking gears because they also have the same problem. They have a large rolling mass with very small gears. When you stop the item, it jerks back, and when it jerks back, it takes the teeth out of the gears. That doesn't happen right away, you just got this pliable. When it gets older and brittle, it breaks. And then, again, that's personal. The worst one to work on is the Nesco. They're really cool. I love a Nesco, but fixing them, really hard. Like, it's way overcomplicated, but they're really cool pieces. Yeah, I fixed a few. I'm not gonna lie. The Puff the Magic Dragon one, I was not able to fix completely because no matter what I did, I couldn't get the timing to sit right without breaking the gears again. But I got it 50% functional, and the person was happy. Yeah. So, you can make it easier. Yeah, just give them a suggestion.
Are there any more questions? If not, we're going to do another drawing. We're drawing for a puzzle. Please send signs that you will not see until you open the box. Surprise. Go ahead.
Jim Draper.
I told you.
We don't mind, do we?
I had to buy it, I think I'm gonna give it back. No, I've been staying in the back. I'm gonna warm it up.
I just told her. That means I get possession 6 months out of the year.
There you go. Can we look at it?
I'll take it. I'll take it. Jan, I'll take it and look at it for you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we're doing a switch on speaker. I'm just taking it all the way out.
Oh, we just want to see what it is. No, she wouldn't steal it, neither would he.
2023.
I take it and never give it back.
Not tonight, but she will be here next weekend. On Saturday, from 12 to 3, and she went ahead and bring it back.
Oh, okay.
Mark your name on it.
Yeah, she's got a really good. I feel that
Nickel.
You want the Grinch?
Yeah, really.
Barbara. Oh wow. Congratulations. That's a cool piece.
Yeah, Paul will be here till 3. If there's anything you want him to sign, he's in there. More than happy
Okay.
They were all dying to see what's in our
Yeah. It's very cool.
Very nice. Lucky you. Lucky day.
The light turned on.
But it's very nice, but if you don't like it, I can take it. Surprise, surprise.
Mine has more than a little bit. Mine has a
Love that.
Yeah, that's actually my brother. That's what he's doing. My brother's an electrical engineer. So he works with cell phones. And he likes to do tickering things. I'm like, oh, I watch this.
Yeah, we have most of our channel is
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.